I'm going to read a little bit about Miss Fortune. Jill Fortune was born and raised in New York City and now makes her home in Rochester, New York. As a social worker, she has worked extensively with families and children who are able to pass on their history, values, and traditions down through the generations. Holding on to their cultural heritage not only strengthens them, but enriches others. Jill earned her Master's of Social Work degree from Syracuse University and was employed by the Department of Human Services and Family Services of Rochester for a number of years. As the founder of Dance Hallelujah, Jill taught liturgical dance and later became the dance consultant for various churches. Welcome to the Conversation Corner.
Thank you.
That excerpt you wrote, it's interesting. It's entitled Ashes for Beauty. Ashes for Beauty. What does that mean to you? And I know you kind of, sort of explained it at the end, but what does Ashes for Beauty mean to you?
Ashes are not very beautiful, and people do not think of ashes as something really, really special. It's like a throw-up. But when you talk about that phrase, ashes for beauty, in this case, it turned something beautiful into ashes. What was, I guess, originally thought of as something that's going to be very, very negative in Mary Ella's situation, it turned out to be something beautiful. And I cannot own up to that particular statement because that's part of the Bible. Okay. Ashes for beauty. We do find that term in the Bible.
Okay. So it's taking something that could have been, and perhaps was even meant to be negative, and turning it into something positive, constructive, and beautiful.
That's right.
Beautiful.
Right.
Okay. Ashes for beauty. Now, how, in this book, it says historical fiction based on family history. Give us a little background. Who is Mary Ella?
Okay, Mary Ella is my maternal grandmother. Okay. But we have a lot of family members who are growing up who never got to meet Mary Ella. Okay. And I think it's really important that the family will know of their ancestors. Okay. That's a really, really big thing for me. Okay. I think we have to pass on the stories because the stories just get lost if nobody opens up their mouths and nobody says anything. And I think that we need to tell our own stories because we can get it right when we tell our own stories. When we allow other people to tell our stories, it's not always on target. So that was one of the things that really motivated me to tell the story about Mary Ella, my maternal grandmother.
So your mother's mother.
My mother's mother. And she was born in Athens, Georgia at the turn of the century. Okay. Well, actually, just before the turn of the century. I think she was born like in 1889. Okay. Yeah, 1889. She was one of 12 children. Back then they had very, very large families, and I think that she discovered her love for written word, for writing, by accompanying her father. Her father at one point was hired by the University of Georgia.
At Athens?
Yes, in Athens. And he was a janitor. Okay. And of course, this is the segregated South, and African Americans were not allowed to study there at that particular university. But anyway, that was his job, and she was always so thrilled over the fact that, she used to call him Papa. Papa has all the keys to every building there at the university.
Which is in the book. I read that in the book. I remember the scene where they're walking down together, and she begs him to accompany him to school. Right.
Right. So she just she just enjoyed going to the school with her papa because it gave her an opportunity to be exposed to so many books, so much literature. He would escort her immediately after they got to the campus to the library, open up the door, and she had the whole run of the library. And she just got biographies, black history, just all kinds of literature that just thrilled her. and she would do that periodically. And occasionally he would come in just to check on her to see how she was doing. They would have lunch together, maybe on the lawn, and then she would get back to her studies. But she always had, I think that this helped her to develop her love for not only music, but for the books, for the written word, for literature.
So, and we'll get to how long you worked on the book. Did you actually know, meet, spend time with Mariella?
Yes, okay. And that really brings a smile to my mouth and all. She was just a wonderful person. I was the eldest granddaughter.
Okay.
And I think can I say this? I think that they have a special place in the hearts of the grandparents.
Okay. Okay.
So I was able to spend a lot of time with her.
Okay.
I can remember a little bit later, maybe I was about 7 or 8 when I started to go to school. My mother was a teacher, and my mother was employed. So my grandmother really took responsibility for caring for my brother and I, and some of the other cousins. And it's really exciting because back in the day, you had so much, togetherness with family.
Mm-hmm.
I
had
think
to depend on one another.
Well, that's true. I think of growing up, and at that point, I was growing up in the Bronx, New York, and I couldn't walk out of my door without other family members, being a couple of doors away, or even going to school. There was a relative here and a relative there.
Okay. Even in New York City, because you get the image of New York City being so big and so nobody talks to anybody except family members. So you're saying there was like community in New York City?
It was very, very much so. And a lot of people really don't understand that. But that can happen even more so if you were living in some of the boroughs. Okay, Manhattan is very, very different, or somewhat different, in that it is busier. You have high rises, but in the Bronx, you'll have individual homes and all, and it's more like a community.
Okay.
There is everybody knows each other, and it was just a feeling just of being just welcomed and just cherished and all in that community. When I got a little older, maybe junior high school, we moved to Manhattan.
Okay. So from the Bronx to Manhattan.
To Manhattan, okay. And that wasn't too different an experience, even though it's busier and all, but you still kind of connect, with people around you. Okay. We moved in what is now, what is it called? The Upper West Side, which is very, very trendy now. Back at that point, the buildings are still there, high rises, but there were people in the building that you connected with, and you still had that sense of family and that sense of community. Okay. And also,
now we've skipped them. We've skipped from Athens, Georgia, all the way to New York City. So we're gonna fill in some points. Okay.
Yes.
So your mother was where in the birth order for your grandmother? Your mother.
She was the firstborn child.
Oh, so your mother was firstborn and you were firstborn.
I was a firstborn granddaughter.
Granddaughter.
I was, yes. And in my mother's immediate family, I was the only daughter. My mother and father had 2 children.
Okay.
I have a brother and myself, and I was,
but you're the oldest.
He was the oldest.
You're the firstborn. Granddaughter.
The firstborn.
Okay, got it.
Granddaughter.
Now, were you born in New York or were you born in the South?
I was born in New York City.
Okay. So by the time you were born, the family had migrated to the north?
Yes.
Was it a part of that 1950s migration and all that? Remember there was two great...
A little bit earlier than that.
There was the 20s, World War One, basically around the War Wars. There was World War One and then World War II, and African Americans left the South in droves and moved to the North and moved to the Midwest and California. So when did your family move up north?